What's up guys, Matt Day here, and today's video is in collaboration with KEH Camera. If you guys aren't familiar, I've been working with them for a while now, creating exclusive videos and blog articles just for their website. And if you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the description. You guys can check out their YouTube channel and subscribe to it. That way you're always there to see any of the new videos we put out. But today we're going to be talking all about flash and how your shutter speed is going to change the overall look and feel and even color of your image based on the ambient light in your scene. I wanted to go over this just because it's very simple, but it's something that people don't often cover enough, and it can make a big impact on, the kind of look you're trying to get. So I had a really simple setup here at the house. I was using a Yongnuo flash, which is just this little speed light here. Doesn't matter what kind of flash you're using, this is just the one that I use. They're simple, affordable, and I've never had issues with it. But as long as you have a flash, it doesn't really matter. I use these two Pocket Wizard Plus 2s. These are some old Pocket Wizards. If you don't know what these are, basically one goes on the camera, one goes on the flash, and they connect, via radio. So anytime I take a photo, it sends a message to let the flash to go off, and that's really all it is. That way you don't have to have a cord. You can find these on KEH. I picked these up on KEH several years ago, and they have a lot of different options, but these are the older models. They work just fine for me, so I've always just stuck with them. And today I was using the Leica M262 with the 50mm Summicron. Typically for something like this, if I'm using flash and I'm shooting portraits, I would rather go with my Nikon D750, but because it's recording this video, I went with this instead. But still, very capable camera. And that's really the whole setup. I shot some photos of my wife Molly in our house, and I basically put together a little setup, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But I just wanted something simple that could show you the differences really easily. One of the first things that people often talk about whenever they start talking about shutter speed and flash is how fast you can shoot, because there's always a maximum sync speed for your camera when you're using a flash. Now there's some ways to work around that. There's like the hyperspeed syncing or high speed sync. You can use a leaf shutter where the shutter is actually in the lens, and that's going to allow you to get a faster shutter speed than if you were using like a focal plane shutter. But we're not going to be talking about any of that stuff today. What we're going to be talking about is specifically the differences that you're going to see in the image whenever you basically just go from one shutter speed to the other, and all the differences you can get in there, because that's what really dramatically changes the images regardless of whatever camera you're using. Obviously, if you're shooting with something that can sync a lot faster, then you're going to see differences there as well. But this is going to work with any camera you're using, whether it's digital, film, leaf shutter, focal plane shutter, whatever it is, the shutter speed is going to make a big difference in the image. So like I mentioned, I was using the M262, and I had my shutter speed starting out at 1/180th of a second because that's the fastest sync speed I can get with this camera. It's not really made for using flash, so some cameras might be faster than this, some might be slower. It all depends on what you're using, but with this one I started out at 1/180th of a second, and I just slowed it down from there just to show you guys the differences. So basically my setup, we were in our dining room at our house. I had my wife sitting there at the table. I gave her a glass of wine for participating in this video, and I just set up a simple little lamp. This is a lamp that I've gotten a million comments on in a lot of my older videos whenever it was in the background of some of the shots. It's just a little bottle lamp that somebody made here in Chillicothe, Ohio. They make all kinds of different lamps. I actually shot some photos for their website, so if you want to check out some of their lamps they offer, I'll put a link in the description as well. But basically, I just wanted to have something where I could really show the difference in the ambient light as you slow down your shutter and what kind of effect that's going to give you. So I had that sitting off to the side. I had a simple little softbox. I had my Yongnuo set up in a Westcott Rapid box, just basically right above Molly, off to her right just a tiny bit, so it wasn't just straight on and kind of flat looking. I wanted to add a little bit of shade there to the left side of her face. So yeah, really simple setup. I basically had my flash set up. I was shooting at 1/16th power, and I had my ISO set to ISO 200, and my aperture was set to f2. Now, all of those things I didn't change at all in this entire setup. The only thing I was adjusting was the shutter speed. I didn't change the flash power, ISO, aperture, none of that. So all these differences you're going to see are only from changing the shutter speed and nothing else. And that's what's really going to show you just how big of a difference it makes. If I were to change my aperture, you would see a difference in the exposure of the flash itself. The flash is controlled by the aperture. So if you're changing your aperture, it's going to change the exposure of the flash. The shutter speed doesn't control that. The shutter speed is going to affect the ambient light, basically the constant light that's happening, outside of just the flash. The flash is something that's really quick. The constant light is always there during the entire duration of your shutter. So this is going to affect natural light. It's going to affect artificial light like this lamp. It doesn't matter what it is. Any kind of constant light source, any kind of ambient light like that, that's what your shutter speed is going to be controlling. So the first shot you can see, like I mentioned, we started out at 1/180th of a second. Pretty simple shot. Pretty much all of the light on Molly and the room is all just from the flash because the flash is so powerful, and that's really what I was exposing for. There wasn't much time in the shutter to really pick up any of that other ambient light. So whenever I go to the next photo, you can see I go to 1/125th of a second, and you can kind of see the flash, or the lamp, the light there on the bottle. You can see it start to expand a little bit, and you can kind of see some of that glow starting to creep in on like the wine glass and also on the table and even kind of on Molly's left arm. Now I slowed it down another stop to 1/60th of a second, and now you can really start to see it coming through on Molly's arm, her t-shirt, the wall that's next to the lamp. That glow is really coming in because what's happening is the shutter speed is open for a longer amount of time and it's picking up all of that light. So it's it's getting brighter in those kind of scenes where or those kind of areas of the scene that have that constant light source. So if you slow it down even more, you can go to 1/30th of a second, and again, it's just getting more and more apparent in these photos, and it's not all of the flash. If you're shooting at 1/180th of a second, you could see it was basically all of the light that you saw there was coming from the flash. Now we're kind of balancing things out a little bit. So there is obviously a flash being used. It's very apparent here, but you're also getting a lot more color in there and a lot more light from the lamp, and that's just changing the feel of it. You kind of get a little bit more of the atmosphere of the room whenever you're slowing it down. So slowed it down even more to 1/15th of a second, and now you can really see just how different it is. So the left side of Molly's face, on her cheek, her neck, her arm, it really adds this warm kind of feeling to it coming from that light. So the flash is a certain temperature and the lamp here is a certain temperature. They're very, very different. Obviously, the lamp is much warmer just based on the light bulb that's in there, and even that amber kind of bottle, it really just adds this warm color that it puts out. And whenever you slow down the shutter, you really start to see a lot more of that, and you can kind of take advantage of it because this is something that it's dramatically different. I mean, I'll put up a side-by-side here so you can see 1/180th of a second all the way to 1/15th of a second, and it's like night and day difference. I mean, it's very, very different, the kind of look that you're going to get. So if you're shooting with any kind of flash in, even daylight, let's say you're shooting outside in the evening and you want to have some of that evening kind of glow in there and you're using a flash, just, leave your shutter open a little bit longer and you're still going to have a sharp image because that flash is really kind of freezing what's going on in your frame. But, just letting that light creep in there, it makes a really big difference. And obviously, if you're shooting inside, this is a great way to kind of add in the, just the feel of the room, the atmosphere of the room, just getting in some of those other colors that are in there that when you're using a flash, typically it can kind of wash things out. But if you just slow down that shutter and let some of that other light kind of build up, it really, really makes a big difference. So that's really all there is to it. Again, I just wanted to share this with you guys so that way you could see some of the differences, see how easy it is to get a different look, and hopefully get you guys trying out different things when you're using flash. This works again for digital, for film. It doesn't matter what it is you're shooting. Just slowing down that shutter speed, it's going to have a big impact on the ambient light and the kind of colors in your image. I mean, you could see in the wall, some of that light that was bouncing off. I didn't make any different kind of adjustments to either image. They're both just as they are, same edit, and they have wildly different looks. So it's a lot of fun to try out. Hopefully this is something that's going to help you guys. So I highly recommend you do it. If you guys have any questions for me, just let me know. If you want to pick up any of this stuff, obviously, like I mentioned, I bought my Pocket Wizards from KEH. They have all kinds of different equipment, not just cameras and lenses, but also lighting. So obviously check them out. You guys know I'm a big fan of KEH and everything that they offer. So if you guys have any questions, again, please let me know in the comments. I'll put a link in the description as well for the blog post to accommodate this video. So if you want to see the photos as they are, just on the website and even some words to go along with it, definitely check that out. So thank you guys as always for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.